What's goody? Back again, my people. Back again. It's been a minute, but hey, man, I gotta keep doing this, man. I gotta keep going with this journey. I gotta keep trying to spread truth and trying to spread understanding. But what's up, though? What's up, though? What's good with y'all? How y'all been? How y'all been? Um, been doing alright. You know, been busy with other things, but every now and then I have to come back to these videos, man. It's ill spectrum, baby. Hope y'all been good. Hope y'all been appreciative and grateful to the Most High for everything you have, especially in these times, man. Especially in these times, you know. I always tell the brothers around me this. You got to keep a strong heart, a strong mind, and a very strong spirit in these times, man, because a lot of confusion is coming up and out. A lot of misleadings are happening. A lot of lies, and just a lot of uncertainty about the future, you know? Uncertainty that I may or may have not talked about in my videos concerning stability in society and, collapse in society. But that's not the point of this video today. The point of this video today is the Statue of Liberty. Now, I live in the New York area, not very close to Manhattan. It's not that far of a ride, really, like 30, 40-minute train ride, but I wanted to do a presentation about the Statue of Liberty and its pagan origins, you know? And of course, you guys listening to this video probably already know about the Statue of Liberty's origins. It's not secret, or it's not, necessarily hidden that the Statue of Liberty is a retelling or strong symbolism of Luciferianism in this world. And more specifically, idolatry. And more specific than that, goddess worship. So who the Statue of Liberty is pretty much, if you read the scriptures, she's pretty much the goddess of heaven. The goddess of heaven, the queen of heaven, the mother of harlots, as she was known in Babylon. And I'll explain to you why and how. All right, so the Statue of Liberty, she is an accumulation of several goddesses in pagan worship. She is a version of Diana. She is a version of Artemis, the hunting goddess. She is a version of Hecate, who's also Persephone, the wife of Hades and queen of the underworld. But her true origins are from Semiramis, who, those of you who don't know, was the wife of Ninos, or in other words, Nimrod. Nimrod, the king of Babylon. And it is them as a couple, Ninos and Semiramis, who built the Tower of Babylon, which was an actual rebellion to the Most High, who specifically said, do not build this tower. And from there, the languages and the tongues were divided. So after reading this Wikipedia page, I also found out that she really is the mother of harlots, the mother of witches, the mother of Wiccans. She started female worship, in Babylon, along with her husband, who very much promoted worshiping themselves as gods, who in retrospect and truth, they weren't really gods. They were just human men with, I guess, all the power and the rulership in the kingdom, since they were kings. And that's what pretty much a lot of this devil worship comes from, whether it be Baal or whether it be Nimrod, or any other goddesses. A lot of them were just kings that convinced the lower class that they were gods, since they had money and power. And the lower class had no reason not to believe that they were gods, so they actually believed that they were gods, because, these guys were kings. They pulled up in the fanciest raiment, the fanciest weapons, the fanciest chariots, so of course they would believe that If they were not gods, then the gods definitely favored them, you know? But let's get into it. All right, so one of the versions of the Statue of Liberty is Semiramis. And Semiramis was the legendary Lydian Babylonian wife of Onas and of Ninos, or Nimrod, who succeeded the latter on the throne of Assyria. Legends narrated by Diodorus, who drew primarily from the works of Theseus of Cnidus, describe her and her relationship to Onas and King Ninus. Okay. So according to Diodorus, a 1st century BC Greek historian, Semiramis was of noble parents, the daughter of the fish goddess Derkida or Ascalon, who is actually Dagon, who is actually just a retelling of the story of Noah of the Bible. He related that Decurto abandoned her at birth and drowned herself. Doves fed the child until Simus, the royal shepherd, found her. Semiramis married Onas, or Menonis, or Ninos, a general under... Oh, no. Wow, she hopped from nigger to nigger? Semiramis named Onas, or Menonis, a general under King Ninos, and she became an advisor to the king. Her advice led him to great succession. At the siege of Bactra, she personally led a party of soldiers to seize a key defensive point, leading to the capture of the city. Ninos was so struck that he fell in love with her. He tried to compel Onas to give her to him as a wife. That's foul. That is foul. First offering his own daughter, Sanani, in return, and eventually threatening to put out his eyes as punishment. Out of fear of the king and out of doomed passion for his wife, Onas fell into a kind of frenzy and madness and hung himself. Ninos then married Semiramis. Damn. You see, fellas, they be hopping from nigga to nigga, bro. Like, as soon as you are out of the picture, she's not going to stop and remember you. She will move on. Even the scriptures say that, you know? Even the scriptures say that, hey, bro, when you die, if you die, most high forbid, she will move on from you, you know? I remember a verse in the scripture also saying that if you don't ask her out, if you don't ask for her hand in marriage, then some other nigga will, you know, so it might as well be you. But anyways, I digress. All right, so this historian relates that after their marriage, Semiramis and Ninos had a son named Ninas. After King Ninos conquered Asia, including the Bactrians, Ninos was fatally wounded by an arrow. Semiramis disguised herself as his son so the army would follow her instructions, thinking they came from the new ruler. Diodorus writes that her reign lasted 42 years and she conquered much of Asia and achieved many feats. She restored ancient Babylon and protected it with a brick wall that completely surrounded the city. She built several places in Persia, including Ecbatana. She ruled Asia effectively and added Libya and Ethiopia to the empire. She went to war with King Stabrates of India, having her artisans build an army military of dummies in the form of false elephants by putting manipulated skins on dark-skinned buffaloes over her camels to deceive the Indians into thinking she had acquired real elephants. The ploy succeeded initially, but she was wounded in the counterattack and her army mainly annihilated, forcing the surviving remnants to reford the Indus and retreat to the west. Okay, it says here, first paragraph, third line, that she was associated with Ishtar and Astartes since the time before Diodorus. And Lady Ishtar, is pretty much another version of Semiramis, or Lady Astor, the first witch, the queen of heaven, the mother of witches, the mother of Wiccans. And that's also another added version to the Statue of Liberty, another representation of Ishtar and Ashtar, who could also be Isis, you know, with the lunar crown. And for those of you who don't know, actually this coming weekend, Easter is named after Ishtar or Astarte, and it is also the celebration of her and of Ninos. The association of the fish and dove is found at Hierapolis, Bambais, the great temple that, according to one legend, was founded by Semiramis, where her statue was shown with a golden dove above her head. The name Semiramis can be applied to various monuments in Western Asia and Anatolia, the origins of which ancient writers sometimes asserted had been forgotten or unknown. Various places in Assyria and throughout Mesopotamia as a whole, Media and Persia, the Levant, Anatolia, the Arabian Peninsula, and the Caucasus bore the name of Semiramis in slightly changed forms, even some named during the Middle Ages. She is accredited with founding the city of Van in Turkey in order to have a summer residence, and that city may be found referred to as Shemiragard or City of Semiramis. All right, so in this book that I actually read twice, very good book, very truthful. A lot of mind-bending moments, a lot of revelations in that book. The Two Babylons, The Two Papillons by Alexander Hislop. Yeah, and it should still be on Amazon. If if you brothers have any interest, I definitely recommend it. Despite a lack of supporting evidence in the Bible, the book Two Papillons by Alexander Hislop was particularly influential in characterizing Semiramis as the whore of Babylon. He claimed that Semiramis invented polytheism, and with it goddess worship. He claimed that the head of the Catholic Church inherited and continued to propagate a millennia-old conspiracy founded by Semiramis and biblical king Nimrod to propagate the pagan religion of ancient Babylon. And that is exactly true. That ancient religion has carried on up until today in modern Babylon, in other words, the U.S. Hislop asserted that Semiramis was a queen consort and the mother of Nimrod, builder of the Bible's Tower of Babylon. So here you have the divine mother, the divine father, and the child. So Nimrod was her husband, and then he was killed. In this story, well, according in the story associated with Semiramis, he was shot by arrows, which is funny because another version of Semiramis, being Artemis, she is a huntress, a goddess of arrows. But anyways, yeah, Ninos died, or Nimrod died by being attacked by boars. And so when that happened, Semiramis did not want to lose power. She didn't want to lose the house. So she lied to the people. She got pregnant, and she told the people that it was Nimrod reborn, through the power of the sun. And so when Nimrod was born, or Tammuz, she later said that this was her husband reborn, which is why she, is depicted as marrying her husband. But yeah, these claims are still circulated among evangelical Protestants in the form of Jack Trick Shake tracts and comic books. Yeah, so that is the first version of the Statue of Liberty, Semiramis, the Queen of Heaven. All right, the second version of the Statue of Liberty was the Greek goddess Hecate, or in other words, Persephone. She is a goddess in ancient Greek religion and mythology, most often holding a pair of what? A pair of torches, a key, or snakes. You know, keyword, a pair of torches. And who else holds the torch? Lady Liberty. She is variously associated with crossroads, night, light, magic, witchcraft, and the moon, just like Semiramis. Her earliest appearance in literature was in Hesiod's Theogony in the 8th century BCE. As a goddess of great honor with domains in the sky, earth, and the sea, she had popular followings among the witches of Thessaly and an important sanctuary among the Carians of Asia Minor and Legina. The earliest evidence for Hecate's cult come from Selinanti, Sicily. So yeah, a lot of witches and Wiccan houses and groves actually worship her. Like they form cults and they worship her. So Hecate was one of several deities worshipped in ancient Athens as a protector of Oikos, alongside Zeus, Hestia, Hermes, and Apollo. In the post-Christian writings of Chaldean oracles, she was regarded with some rulership over the earth, sea, and sky, as well as a more universal role as a savior, mother of angels, and the cosmic world soul. Regarding the nature of her cult, it had been remarked she is more at home on the fringes than in the center of a Greek polytheism. Intrinsically ambivalent and polymorphous, she straddles conventional boundaries and eludes definition. The Romans often knew her by the epithet of the Trivia. So there's a trio here, whereby she's always associated with Diana and Artemis. And as as this article said earlier, she often holds either a torch, a key, or a snake. She holds the torch. Diana holds. She holds the torch. I think Diana holds the snake, and then Artemis holds the key. So all three of them are associated with roles as protector of travel and the crossroads, and the crossroads being the transversion between life and death, between the world of the living and the spiritual world. And who else was the god of that crossroads? Osiris as well, who was also Nimrod or Ninos. All right, so potential Greek source words have been suggested for the goddess's name. The word, yeah, I don't know what that is, but this word means willing. Thus, she who works her will. And it may be related to the name Hecate. However, no source suggested list will or willingness as a major attribute of Hecate. Another Greek word suggestion as the origin of the name Hecate, an obscure epithet of Apollo, interpreted as the far-reaching one, or the far darter. This has been suggested in comparison with the attributes of the goddess Artemis, strongly associated with Apollo and frequently equated with Hecate in the classical world. Supporters of this etymology suggest that Hecate was originally considered an aspect of Artemis prior to the latter's adoption into the Olympian pantheon. So they're very close related. You know, this trio, Artemis, Hecate, and Diana. Artemis would have at that point become more strongly associated with purity, maidenhood, on the one hand, while her original darker attributes like her association with magic, the souls of the dead, and the night would have continued to be worshipped separately under her title, Hecate. So it's the same goddess, just different aspects, like comes to hunting, nature, childbirth, fertility. That attribute goes to Artemis. And if we're talking about death, crossroads, the underworld, witchcraft, the same woman or the same goddess, but they call that personality Hecate. So Hecate was generally represented as three-formed or triple-bodied, though the earliest known images of the goddess are singular. Her earliest known representation is a small terracotta statue found in Athens. An inscription on the statue is a dedication to Hecate, in writing of the style of the 6th century, but it otherwise lacks any other symbols typically associated with the goddess. She is seated on a throne with a chaplet around her head. The depiction is otherwise relatively generic, Farno states. The evidence of the monuments as to the character and significance of Hecate is almost as dull, almost as full as that to express her manifold and mystic nature. A 6th century fragment of pottery from Boeotia depicts a goddess which may be Hecate in a maternal or fertility mode. Crowned with leafy branches as in later descriptions, she is depicted offering a maternal blessing to two maidens who embrace her. The figure is flanked by lions, an animal associated with Hecate both in the Chaldean oracles, coinage, and reliefs from Asia Minor. In artwork, she's often portrayed in three statues standing back to back, each with its own special attributes: torches, keys, daggers, snakes, and dogs. And I'm sure you can see down here already a statue of Hecate, which resembles the Statue of Liberty, except that her arms aren't in the pose. Her arms are chopped off for some reason. But if you look on her head, she has the crown. I'm not sure how many, an 8-pointed star crown. Maybe, I could be wrong. If any of you brothers know better, correct me. And I read somewhere that this crown is the Venus star on her head. I'm not too sure on that yet. I'm still reading on it. But that's besides the point. The point is I wanted to show you the resemblance between her and Statue of Liberty, which is undeniable. You know, it is very, you can definitely argue that this is the Statue of Liberty. So here are more pictures depicting Hecate's with her being a trio with Artemis and Diana, such as this picture right here. And notice one of them is holding a torch, you know, and just as Lady Liberty. One is holding a torch, one other one has the crown that the Lady Liberty wears as well. Here's another image, you know, depicting that, you know, one is Artemis, one is Diana, and the other is Hecate. All right, we're going to move on to Diana, the second version of Hecate. So Diana is a goddess of Roman religion, primarily considered as a patroness of the countryside and nature. Hunters, wildlife, childbirth, crossroads. Who else is the goddess of the crossroads? Semiramis and Hecate, goddess of the night and the moon. She's equated with the Greek goddess Artemis, who we'll touch on next, and absorbed much of Artemis's mythology early in Roman history because they're the same. That's why she absorbed much of it, including a birth on the island of Delos to parents Jupiter and Latona, and a twin brother Apollo, though she had an independent origin in Italy. Diana is revered in modern neo-pagan religion, including Roman neo-paganism, Strengeria, and Wicca. In ancient, medieval, and modern periods, Diana has been considered a triple deity, merged with the goddess of the moon, Luna Selene, and the underworld, usually Hecate. Luna Selene is also just another version of Aster, another version of Lady Ashtoreth, another version of Isis, and another version of Artemis. They all share the same traits: a goddess of the moon, either goddess of the moon, goddess of childbirth, goddess of fertility, goddess of witchcraft, Wicca, or goddess of the moon. Especially goddess of the moon. A lot of them have that trait, the goddess of the moon. Diana was often considered as an aspect of a triple goddess, known as Diana Triformis, Diana, Luna, and Hecate. According to historian C.M. Green, these were neither different goddesses nor an amalgamation of different goddesses. They were Diana. Diana as huntress, who was Artemis, Diana as the moon, and Diana as Diana of the underworld, Hecate, so Persephone. At a sacred grove on the shores of Lake Nemi, Diana was venerated as a triple goddess beginning in the late 6th century BCE. Alright, as a goddess of the crossroads and the underworld, the earliest epithet of Diana was Trivia, and she was addressed with that title by Virgil, Catullus, and many others. Trivia comes from the Latin trivium, triple way, and refers to Diana's guardianship over roadways, particularly wide junctions or three-way crossroads. This role carried somewhat dark and dangerous connotation as it metaphorically pointed to the way to the underworld. Yep. The road between life and death, the road between the world of the living and the spiritual world, where spirits go after death. In the 1st century CE play, Media Enseneca's titular sorceress calls on Trivia to cast a magic spell. She invokes the triple goddess of Diana, Selene, and Hecate, and specifies that she requires the powers of the latter. The 1st century poet Horace similarly wrote of a magic incantation invoking the power of both Diana and Persephone, or Persephone. The symbol of the crossroads is relevant to several aspects of Diana's domain. It can symbolize the path hunters may encounter in the forest, lit only by the full moon. This symbolizes making choices in the dark without the light of guidance. Diana's role as a goddess of the underworld, or at least of ushering people between life and death, caused her early on to be associated with Hecate and also with Proserpina. However, her role as an underworld goddess appeared to predate strong Greek influence, though the Greek colony of Cumae had a cult of Hecate and certainly had contact with Latins. A theater in her sanctuary at Lake Nemi included a pit and tunnel that would have allowed actors to easily descend on the side of the stage and descend on another, indicating a connection between the phases of the moon and a descent by the moon goddess into the underworld. It is likely that her underworld aspect in her original Latin worship did not have a distinct name, like Luna was her moon aspect. This is due to a seeming reluctance or taboo by the early Latins to name underworld deities and the fact that they believed the underworld to be silent, preluding name Hecate, a Greek goddess also associated with the boundary between the earth and the underworld, became attached to Diana as a name for her underworld aspect following Greek influence. And let's see if we can pull some images of this Hecate, just to paint that image. Alright, so in this image, there's kind of a crown that resembles that of Lady Liberty. But there should be more images depicting that. Here she's holding a bow and arrow because Diana is Artemis. Not really sure what's going on here. Here she's seen standing behind the deer, which she holds in high admiration. She believed the deer was noble. The deer was noble and was godly. But also the deer's a symbol or representation of Niños, the woodland god. Sir Niños, my bad. Here she's beside deers again. Here she's carrying a bucket of arrows on her back with the deer beside her. Here she's with dogs. Not really sure what that is. Ooh, here she has the lunar crown. The moon, the crescent moon on her head. That comes from Egypt. That's Isis right there. Isis wore that crown as well. That's Artemis. That is Artemis again. Artemis one more time. Artemis again and again and again. And these characters are usually reused in modern storytelling. So Artemis, there was a Pixar movie about a redhead girl who was a huntress who used the bow and arrow. That was the retelling of Artemis. Also Artemis and the Hunger Games, they use that as well. So these characters are recycled just to mock, but not necessarily mock, but also just to communicate with those that are in the know that, this world is about worshiping pagan gods. Alright, and last but not least, Artemis, the huntress god. So in ancient Greek religion and mythology, Artemis is the hunting goddess of the wilderness, of wild animals, transitions, in other words, crossroads, nature, vegetation, childbirth, care of children, and chastity. She was often said to roam the forests and mountains, attended by an entourage of nymphs. The goddess Diana is her Roman equivalent. Artemis was the daughter of Zeus and Leto, and twin sister of Apollo. In most accounts, the twins were produced by an extramarital liaison, for which Zeus's wife, Hera, forbade Leto from giving birth anywhere on solid land. Only the island of Delos allowed her to give birth to her children. In one account, Artemis is born first, and then proceeds to assist Leto in the birth of the second twin, Apollo. Artemis was a chirotrophic child-nurturing deity, being the patron and protector of young children, especially young girls. Artemis was worshipped as one of the primary goddesses of childbirth and midwifery, along with Aletheia and Hera. She was also a patron of healing and disease, particularly among women and children, and was believed to send both good and illness upon women and children. Artemis was one of the three major virgin goddesses alongside Athena and Hestia. Artemis preferred to remain unmarried and was one of the three Greek goddesses over whom Aphrodite had no power. Homer calls Artemis Theron, the mistress of animals, a title associated with representation in art going back as far as the Bronze Age. Showing a woman between a pair of animals, Artemis carries with her certain functions and characteristics of a Minoan form whose mystery was lost in the myths. On a Greek vase circa 570 BCE, a winged Artemis stands between a spotted panther and a deer. Theron is very close to the daemons, and this differentiates her from the other Greek divinities. This is the reason that Artemis was later identified with Hecate, since the daemons were tutelary deities. Hecate was the goddess of crossroads, and she was the queen of the witches. For those of you who don't know, daemons are just another word for demons. The word daemon, or the word demon, literally means a knowledgeable one. In some cults, she retains the theriomorphic form of a pre-Greek goddess who was conceived with the shape of a bear. Callisto in Arcadia is a hypostasis of Artemis with the shape of a bear, and the cults of Braran and Pyrrhus, Munichia are remarkable for the Arctea, where virgin girls before marriage were disguised as she-bears. Alright, Artemis as a mother goddess. Despite her virginity, both modern scholars and ancient commentaries have linked Artemis to the archetype of the mother goddess. Artemis was traditionally linked to fertility and was petitioned to assist women with childbirth, according to Herodotus. Greek playwright Aeschylus identified with Artemis with Persephone as a daughter of Demeter. Her worshippers in Arcadia also traditionally associated her with Demeter and Persephone. In Asia Minor, she was often conflated with the local mother goddess figures such as Cybele and Anahita. The archetype of the mother goddess, though, was not highly compatible with the Greek pantheon, and though the Greeks had adopted the worship of Cybele and other Anatolian mother goddesses as early as the 7th century BCE, she was not directly conflated with any Greek goddesses. Instead, bits and pieces of her worship and aspects were absorbed variously by Artemis, Aphrodite, and other Eastern influence spreads. Alright, Artemis as Hecate. Some scholars believe that Hecate was an aspect of Artemis prior to the latter's adoption into the Olympian pantheon. Artemis would have, at that point, become more strongly associated with purity and maidenhood on the one hand, while her originally darker attributes like her association with magic, the souls of the dead, and the night would have continued to be worshipped separately under her title as Hecate. Both goddesses carry torches. They carry torches, like who? Lady Liberty, and were accompanied by a dog. It seemed that the character of Artemis in Arcadia was originally, and at Acacium, Artemis Hegemony is depicted holding two torches, and at Lycosuria, Artemis is depicted holding a snake and a torch. A bitch suitable for hunting was lying down by her side. Sophocles called Artemis carrying a torch in each hand. However, the adjective refers to the twin fire on the two peaks of the mountain Parnassus and behind Delphi. In the Fest of Laphria at Delphi, Artemis is related to the pre-Greek mistress of the animals, with barbaric sacrifices and possible connections with magic and ghosts since Potnia. Theron was close to the daemons. The annual fire was the characteristic custom of the fest. At Kerameikos in Athens, Artemis is clearly identified with Hecate. Pausanias believes that Calliste is a surname of Artemis carrying a torch, and Thessaly, the distinctly local goddess Enodia, with the surname Phaeria, is identified with Hecate. Artemis Phaeria was worshipped in Argos, Athens, and Sicyon. And that's as far as I'll go with this. I'll still show you some pictures of Artemis as she is depicted. Here she's holding the torch that we talked about, like Lady Liberty. But in most of these images, she will be seen carrying the bow and arrow. And that's just pretty much what I wanted to prove to you guys about, you know. And here she is holding the torch and the lunar crown on her head, like the goddess Ishtar or Isis. As I was saying, I just wanted to show you guys the connection between these pagan goddesses and Lady Liberty. You know, they put these things right in front of our faces, you know, especially as big centers of attraction. Thing is, we're just not aware of what we're seeing, you know, because we can be ignorant sometimes as to what's going on around us. But if you open our eyes, we'll see that, you know, this world worships Satan, you know. And if Satan exists, the Most High definitely exists. So with that being said, please continue to pray to the Most High. Please continue to ponder and to meditate about His commandments, His instructions, His constitutions, His law. Please continue to be grateful for His mercy and His compassion and His kind-heartedness. And don't forget Him, man. Try to prove yourself to Him every day. Do more, you know. Read more scripture, pray more, meditate more, fast more, you know, do more acts of kindness, you know. And yeah, man, thank you guys for listening to me another video.